Alright. That should about do it. Hey guys, hey, it's me, it's Tech. Tech Turngood, how you guys doing? You may be obviously able to tell. I don't know for sure, but I am in an effort to uh I can easily tell myself that I'm starting to get obsessed with the sound shit again. Driving me nuts and I get all itchy about it. Anyway, um in an effort to stop being weird about it. No, let's turn that back on. I have moved to an old nostalgic location. I'm back in my old sound closet, which it is one of those things. Um, but the obviously the reason I'm back here is because it's it's a little bit more closed in. The sound bounces in a different way, and I just want to try for a different sound. So ideally, this one would sound better, more isolated. I don't know what I'm looking for. Honestly I really don't know what I'm looking for. But I'll know it when I hear it. And also, if I do enjoy this, how it sounds, this is probably how I'm going to record visual novels and other things like that in the future. So yeah, not much else to get up to, so let's get started.
最後に一服と思ったが、
Oh, wait,
あ
hold
い
on.
にくお前を待っている間に吸い切ってしまってね。
That's
日
not
本
work.
のタバコはうますぎていけない。
Nope, you can't see that one. So I guess this is the one. I'm fiddling around with saves again so I can make thumbnails. Where was it? Huh? Uh-oh. 6, no, 24. 30. It's close. Whoop. This one. Really? The Tale of the Star. Is this right? I don't know if this is right. If it's not, so it is. 6 days passed. The weather in that time, sunny and clear. I was looking in that area anyway. Whatever. It first came to Sojuro's attention when he was resting with Alice after spending all day cleaning.
宗十郎、今日ぐらいはバイト休みでしょ
You off work today, right, Sojuro? Aoko asked him in her usual manner, immediately upon entering the drawing room. It was already nighttime, approaching 9 o'clock. Afternoon's sunny weather had changed abruptly, and thick clouds were visible outside the window. Awoken from his nonchalant daydreaming, Sojuro tilted his head to the side and replied calmly.
休みだけど、どうして
I'm off today, but why do you ask?
これから実家に戻るから用意しておいて。
I'm making a trip home in a bit, so get your things ready. Sojuro's peaceful expression had grown tense at the moment she appeared. Unsure of what any of this had to do with him, he stole a glance at Alice, who was seated across from him. However, she looked just as surprised, her eyes widening ever so slightly as she studied the other two.
用意って何の
Huh? What things? He replied timidly, struggling to hide his bitterness at Aoko for waiting until the cleaning was finished before deciding to show up.
用意は用意よ。 1時間ぐらい歩く山の上だから、寒くない格好をしろって言ってるの。
Your things. Get them ready. Takes an hour to walk up the mountain, so make sure you dress accordingly. Suzuro's expression only grew darker. The way she spoke made it sound like...
しずきくんを連れて行くの。
You're taking Suzuki with you? Alice spoke up before Soujyuro himself could manage to say anything. Aoko brusquely asked if there was a problem.
私だってあんなとこに行きたくないわよ。
I don't even want to
け
go.
ど、今日ぐらいは顔を出せってうるさいから、本当に顔だけ見せに行くの。
They keep asking me to stop by, so I'm gonna make a brief visit.
宗十郎を連れて行くのは単に暇だからだけど。
Just thought I'd bring Soujyuro along since he's free. That's all. She stood tall, as if challenging her roommate to oppose her decision. Alice's face was dour as she gazed back. Sojuro's irritation was obvious as well as he glared at Aoko. Of course, their unspoken objection had no effect on Aoko in the slightest.
それじゃあ、班になったら出かけるからね。
We're leaving at 9:30. Having said all she wanted, Aoko disappeared from the room once again. Alice and Soujyuro could only sit in dumbfounded silence.
アリス、青崎の家って遠いのか？
Alice, is Asaki's house very far from here? He stared at the clock as he spoke. Only 10 minutes to go until half past the hour.
場所的には三崎市の端よ。ここから電車で4駅分下った小さな山の中にあるわ。
It's at the edges of Misaki City. Oh, that was weird. It's at the edges of Misaki City, full stops away by train, up on a small mountain.
あなたの住んでいたところに比べれば丘でしょうけど。
Though I suppose it'd be more hill by your standards, I'd imagine. Her expression had not changed, but her voice made it obvious she was in a poor mood. His complete obliviousness to the fact only showed how clueless he truly was.
そっか。今から行ったら帰ってくるのは明日になるね。
Cool. So if we leave now, we won't be able to make it back until tomorrow.
帰ってこられたらの話だけど。
Yes, if you even make it back. Each spoke to themselves as if there was no one else at all in the room. Those about to embark on a journey always feel a sense of dread, and he was no exception.
青崎の家ってお化けでも出るのか？
Is Zazaki's place, like, haunted? With, like, ghosts? Alice did not say anything in response. All she did was raise her eyes from her teacup to stare wordlessly at him.
アリス？
What? What's up? This question caused her to suddenly avert her eyes. Something seemed off about her today. The minute hand on the clock was about to reach 30. Bothered as he was by Alice's odd behavior, Sledger had no choice but to stand up from the sofa and take his leave.
それじゃあ行ってくるよ。
Alright, well, see you later. Soujyuro hurried through the drawing room. Alice kept staring at his back until he was gone. By the time he had changed in his room and returned to the foyer, Aoko was already waiting and ready to go. Furthermore, Alice was at her side and they were in deep conversation. She abruptly ended their chat as soon as he descended the stairs.
それじゃあ行きましょうか。アリス、留守番よろしくね。
Alright, let's head out. Keep an eye on things while we're gone, okay, Alice? She responded with a simple nod. There was determination in Aoko's step as she strode to the door. Soujyuro made to follow as he donned his coat in the foyer.
ほら、ぐずぐずしない。
Hurry it up! Her words made him pick up his pace, but he stopped suddenly, as if he had remembered something. He looked back at Alice as if to say that he had left the heater on in his room or some other important manner.
それじゃあ行ってくる。できるだけ早めに帰ってくるから、寝ないで待ってるんだぞ、アリス。
Bye. I'll be back as soon as I can, but try to stay awake this time while waiting for me, okay? Alice blinked in shock at his unexpected request. Aoko looked on with arms folded as Soujyuro stood waiting for a response. Bewildered, Alice finally returned to the drawing room without uttering a single word. Her only response had been the very smallest of nods. They were headed for Akikoshiro train station. Akikoshiro. The night had grown late. It was nearly 11. A train full of tourists went by in the opposite direction before the two finally arrived at the tiny station. The surrounding area was incredibly dark and quiet. In fact, it felt less like a station and more like a small boat dock. Soujyuro had a hard time imagining that many people came here, even during the day. It had only the absolute bare minimum necessary to greet the odd visitor. There was no convenience stores in sight, only fields and the street lights that dotted the road. Aoko placed her ticket in front of the attendant, who sat sleeping in his chair and skimmed the train schedule. The last and only train back departed just after midnight. Having confirmed her options, she headed hastily out of the station. The elderly station attendant was all alone. He had dozed off with both the heater and television still turned on. As he slept, his face looked completely content. The night felt vast in its darkness. The small train station had been rendered obsolete now that cars were commonplace. It was like a lone star shining in the night sky. Soujyuro thanked the attendant for his service before stepping out into the darkness. The man must have looked after the station for decades at this point, and would likely continue until the day he died. Outside the station, there was little in the way of human development. It could scarcely be called a village. There wasn't even an area out front for cars and buses to drop people off. Their eyes were only met with the panorama of flat fields interlaced with a lattice of footprints. Though surely a sea of beautiful green in the summertime, during winter, it was more like a wasteland. However, electric lights that felt strangely out of place illuminated one side of the dark vista. The cold only grew harsher as the night wore on. It relentlessly snatched all sensation from the fingertips. Aoko thus kept her hands in her pockets as she strode through the paths among the fields. She could feel the ground below her through her shoes. Its softness was unlike that of the city, and for her it brought back countless memories. She had walked this path every day in middle school, after all.
あの山の真ん中あたり、家の明かりが見えるでしょ。あれがうち。
See the lights of that house in the middle of that mountain? That's my place. She pointed out a mountain that rose up before them with her finger. The journey looked like it would take about 40 minutes on foot. For now, they remained among the rice fields, though their journey would continue beyond them. Aoko followed the path bathed in light without looking back. The path seemed to hang before them like a pier, heading out into the darkness of the ocean. The closer they got to the mountain, the darker it became. All signs of the hustle and bustle of human life were absent. The dark stillness made the moon overhead seem dazzling. Its light transformed the mountain path from blackness into mere shadow. Though dark, their surroundings were not totally indiscernible. The seemingly unending path stretched on and on. Soujyuro, doing his best to match Aoko's pace, stole a momentary glance at the profile of her face. Did she not feel frightened in this quiet darkness, even with the moon to light the way? Her expression showed no outward signs of discomfort as she strode on in silence. In fact, this is how she always looked when she was trying to act tough. He had only had a month's experience with her, but that much he knew. There were obviously something on her mind she couldn't ignore, no matter how small it might be.
青崎でもこういうところは怖いのかい？
Are you, scared to be out here in the dark? She responded to his tentative question with a surprising nod.
こんな夜道を怖がらない人なんて普通いないでしょ。
Who wouldn't be scared walking these paths at night?
我慢できるか無視できるかの2つだけよ。そのどちらもできない人は夜に出歩かないわ。
All you can do is endure and ignore it. If you can't do either, then you really shouldn't be strolling around in the middle of the night.
なるほど。それじゃあ、どうして自分を連れてきたんだ？
I see. So then why'd you bring me?
言わなかった？こんな何もない道を一人で歩くのは時間の無駄でしょ。退屈しのぎに話し相手が欲しかったの。
Didn't you hear what I said earlier? All this walking in the middle of nowhere is a waste of time. I wanted someone to talk to so it'd go by faster.
そういえば、そんなことを言ってたな。
Yeah, I guess you did say something like that. Soujyuro fell into silence. He wasn't bothered by what she said. Rather, he was desperately searching for something to say in response. Their path through the night continued onward. Only the sound of their footsteps could be heard. Eventually, Aoko was unable to endure the silence for any longer, despite her best efforts.
宗十郎、退屈しのぎに何か話してよ。
Talk about something, Soujyuro.
参ったな。話すようなことはないんだけど。
I don't really have anything to talk about. He felt clueless and ashamed. He'd been searching unsuccessfully for a topic throughout their awkward silence. Shocked though she was, Aoko let out a gentle sigh. At least for the moment, his simple earnestness was enough to make her forget about all her troubles.
バカね。嘘でも何でもいいからとにかく話をすればいいの。別に面白い話なんて期待してないから。
Don't be stupid. Make something up if you have to. Doesn't even have to be interesting. Just anything will do. Her blunt retort was not entirely honest. She would surely scold him if he dared lie to her. Soujyuro said as much, reminding her of how she had claimed to hate lies. Naturally, she didn't bother responding.
仕方ない。話はないけど、聞きたいことならあった。
Damned either way, I guess. Don't have anything else to talk about, but there is something I wanted to ask.
何でもいいなら、それもいいだろ。
You did say anything goes, right? A slight scowl crossed her face at the suggestion, but it only lasted a moment before she returned to her previous calm state.
ま、それもいいか。どうせもうすぐ忘れるんだから。
Alright, go ahead. I'll probably forget as soon as we're done anyway. She muttered her reply without making eye contact. Their destination in the mountains remained hidden from them, revealing not even a hint of its form. It had bothered him ever since that night. What was the truth behind it all? And how would the two sisters' drama unfold? Soujyuro decided to press Aoko for details.
それで、トウコさんは何がしたかったんだ？
So, what was it that Miss Toko wanted to accomplish?
あれ、言わなかった？私への復讐と根源に接触することだって。
I thought I told you. She wanted to get revenge against me. And then there's the whole coming in contact with the root thing.
根源の渦については前に少しだけ話したでしょ。
We already talked about the swirl of the root, remember?
確か、魔術の源だっけ？
It's like, the source of magecraft, right?
そう。そして最終目的でもあるわ。
Right. And also its end goal.
根源の渦っていうのは、すべての英知が記録された位置、すべての事柄が決定された場所。
A place where all knowledge is recorded and all matters are settled.
そこを見て、触れて、理解できれば、不可能なんて言葉すら作り変えられる。伝承によって呼び名は様々だけど、要するに神様のいる位置なんでしょうね。
See, touch, and understand it makes even the impossible possible. It has gone by many names over the years, but you could say it's where God lives.
神様っていうのは八百万的なものじゃなく
God. So just the one then? Not a bunch like in Shintoism?
たまにそういうこと言い出すから厄介よね、あんたは。
You go again with your stupid annoying questions.
そりゃ万象に宿る神様もいるでしょうけど、これはその前。そういうのを決めた大前提みたいなものよ。
Yes, there are gods and everything around us, but there's also one big underlying force that existed way before all that.
そんなものの入り口がどうして岬にあったのかは知らないけど、祖父はそれを発見して新しい魔法を作り出した。
Who knows why an entrance to the root is located in Misaki, but my grandfather discovered it and was able to create a new kind of magic.
でも、その後に根源への道を閉ざしちゃったのよ。
But then he closed the way to the
魔
roots.
法さえ成立したのなら、神様への道は消えるべきだって。
He said that if this was the path to God enabled us... He said that if this path to God enabled us to create magic, then no one should be allowed to go there.
多分、私たちが生きてる限り解放する気はなくて、トウコはそれが腹立たしかったんだと思う。
He had no intention of opening it again, as long as we're alive, which made Toko crazy mad.
たとえ力不足で取り込まれても、道があるのなら試すべきだ。自己の消滅を恐れるぐらいなら、そもそも魔術なんて学ばなかった。ってね。
She said that the path is meant to be explored, even if we aren't strong enough to handle what we may find, and that you shouldn't be studying magecraft in the first place if you're afraid of getting killed.
でも祖父は、礎になろうとする意思さえ認めなかった。
But my grandfather didn't exactly appreciate her ambition.
もっと強力な跡継ぎが生まれるまで、根源の解析は許可しない。跡継ぎに魔法を譲るけれど、根源への道だけは閉ざしていたのよ。
He refused to allow anyone to investigate the root until a stronger heir was born. He's willing to pass on true magic, just not the way to reach the root.
トウコの気持ちもわかるけど、私は祖父に賛成だわ。
I understand where Toko's coming from, but I agree with my grandfather.
根源なんてものに興味はないし、第一、今まで一人も生還者がいないんだもの。それが本当に神々の座なのか保証もないし。
I don't really care about the root, and anyway, to this day there haven't been any survivors. There's not even proof that it's really the seat of the gods. Her mood gradually soured as she spoke, and towards the end it sounded more like a list of complaints. Despite her words, however, part of Aoko was unable to agree completely with her grandfather's decision. Soujyuro took a note and followed up with a question about something he found strange.
青崎、一人も生還者がいないってどういうことだ
What do you mean about how there haven't been any survivors?
根源に触れて帰ってきた者は一人もいないの。世界規模でね。
I mean that no one's ever come in contact with the root and returned to talk about it. Not a single person in the entire world.
触れれば即消滅。人間程度の魂だと触れた瞬間に元に戻るとか、根源に取り込まれるとか。
Coming in contact with it means instant death. Soul of a mere human simply returns to the source, or so to speak. In other words, gets sucked into the root.
なんで、どんなに歴史に名を残した魔術師でも、あれにだけは触れていないわ。せいぜい間近にして、大急ぎで自分の魔術を安定させた程度だもの。
That's why not even the greatest mages in history dared to touch it. Just coming close enough to send them frantically trying to stabilize their magecraft. Soujyuro furrowed his brow at the oddness of it all.
それじゃあ、どうしてそこがそういう場所だってわかるんだ
So then, how does anyone know so much about the place?
そりゃ中に入って伝えた人がいたからでしょ。
Because there is one person who went in and made it back.
でも生還者はいないって。
But you just said there were no survivors.
だからそういう人たちは中で神様にでもなっちゃったんじゃない？
Yeah, because everyone who's gone in turns into God too. She spoke very matter-of-factly, as if it was only a minor detail about something that had happened the other day.
そうなればこっちに帰ってくる必要はないでしょうし、もしかすると単に帰ってこられないだけかもね。
So why would they even bother coming back to our world? Or maybe they can't. Who knows?
ま、神様って位置づけが私たちが思っているようなものとは思えないからあまり幸福そうには思えないけど。
Being God's probably totally different than what we imagine. I doubt it's very fun. Whether they succeed or fail in their endeavor, those who reach the root become unable to return to the normal world. Maybe the first person to become God felt lonely and spread the word about the swirl of the root and would have others join them there. Or maybe he had so much work to do as God, he just needed some help. None of it really made any sense, no matter how long Soujyuro thought about it.
トウコさんはそうなりたかったのかな。
You think Miss Toko wanted to become a god?
まさかあの人は単に知りたかっただけよ。
No, please. You just wanted to know the truth.
その後に残された人たちのことなんて興味はないの。昔から目標に没頭しても成果を愛する人じゃなかったから。
Doesn't care about what happens to the next person. That's how she's always been. She just focuses completely on her goal and doesn't worry about what comes next.
正直なところ、そのあたり姉貴は突き抜けてるわ。
It's a bit on the extreme side, if I'm honest.
本当の天才ってのはああいう非人間のこと言うのよ。苦労して作り上げたものの、その後を全く考えないんだから。
But geniuses always have an inhumane side to them like that. They work and work on their masterpiece without so much as considering what'll happen once it's complete. Soujyuro wasn't sure whether she spoke out of disgust or respect.
でも、そのくせ面倒見はいいっていうか。
But she's still pretty considerate to others in the moment.
未来のことは考えないのに、今あるものには何にでも興味を持つんだから。
Since she doesn't worry about the future, she focuses all her energy on the here and now. Aoko praised her sister's genius even while cursing her every being, though her tone of voice was perfectly pleasant and lacked any audible animosity.
そうだね。それに、トウコさんはこっちの方が好きみたいだったから。
Yeah, does seem like she'd rather stay here. As soon as he spoke, he was struck by the meaning of Aoko's earlier words. I don't care about the root. He realized that she must feel the same way as Toko. Still, there was one thing that had been bothering Soujyuro regarding Toko.
そういえば、カエルにするって一体。
What exactly did you mean by turning her into a frog? He ventured to bring up the topic no one had been talking about since it occurred. It had always seemed taboo to bring it up, so the sense of transgression made him hesitate as he finally sought the truth.
一体も何も言葉通りの意味だけど。
Exactly what it sounds like.
もともとルーン使いには変身術がある分、トウコにはかかりやすかったみたいよ。
Rune mages can shapeshift, so apparently that made her especially susceptible to the curse.
いや、そんな当然のように言われても。
This feels like a bigger deal than you're making it out to be. His stomach hurt from the stress of not knowing how to respond to her cavalier attitude.
まあ、それでどうやって。
I mean, how is it even possible for you to do that? He didn't particularly want to ask, but it was the natural extension of his current line of inquiry. Aoko stared straight ahead as she lectured him, completely ignoring the pained expression on his face.
2種類あって、精神を入れ替えるのか、肉体を再編成するかね。
So there's two ways to go about it. A mind swap? Or a reconfiguration of the person's physical form?
精神だけを入れ替えるのは簡単な分、すぐ元に戻れるわ。
Swapping minds is easy, but the effects don't really last that long.
夢を見ているようなものだし、ちょっとしたショックで元の体に意識が戻ってくれるから。
Feels like you're dreaming, and then there's this little jolt when you return to your body.
厄介なのは肉体そのものを変えてしまう方で、この場合、術が切れるまで元に戻るのは難しいでしょうね。
Changing someone's physical form is a little more tricky, and it's hard to revert back before the spell ends.
私がやったのは、その再編成の方みたい。
I guess they just used the physical reconfiguration approach.
多分塩基配列を組み替えるんだろうけど、もうちんぷんかんぷん。魔術が科学的な説明するのもナンセンスだし。
Something about reconstructing the base DNA sequence. I don't know, it's all gibberish to me. You can't explain magecraft with scientific jargon anyway, right? Aoko spoke as if it was not her own actions she was discussing. Apparently, she'd been borrowing magecraft from her future self and couldn't use any of it in the present. Her actions had also created a looming threat that would come back to haunt them in 10 years' time. Trying to comprehend even a fraction of all the intricacies involved made Sojuro's head hurt.
あと数年後には青崎はそんなこともできるのか。
But like, a handful of years from now, you'll know how to do stuff like that?
末恐ろしいな。
That's kind of scary if you ask me. Is this inside out? Why is it inside out? Weird. Soujyuro was in fact being completely honest with her. In response, Aoko only stared ahead blankly, eyes open wide. She looked like she wanted to scold him.
アリスならそれぐらい今でもできるわよ。
Physical reconfiguration wouldn't be a problem for Alice even now, you know.
なんだと。
Huh?
やっぱりね、そんなことだと思ってたわ。
I said you should take her more seriously, remember?
前にも言ったでしょ。あんたはあの子を甘く見てるって。
You never really listen.
アリスの部屋のもろもろの人形は、あの子に逆らった
Oh my
羊
God.
たちの慣れの果てなんだから。
The fucked up part is I don't know if she's joking or not. Those dolls in her room, they're all that's left of people who opposed her.
まさかアリスはそんなことしないぞ。
There's no way she would do something like that.
いやいや、これが。私もね、付き合い始めた半年はそう思ってたんだけどね。
You know, that's exactly what I thought for the first 6 months or so. The light, cheerful laughter that followed only made her statement all the more chilling.
青崎、その冗談笑えないぞ。
It's not funny to joke like that, Aozaki.
あら、私は笑わせる気なんてこれっぽっちもないんだけど。
Do I look like I'm trying to make you laugh? She was clearly making fun of him at this point. Unable to determine how serious to take what she had said, Sojuro's mood and expression only grew darker. His obvious dejection made Aoko smile with satisfaction.
あそこであんたの言葉にうなずいちゃうあの子がそこまで魔女になれるはずもないんだけど。
She shouldn't be able to be a witch in the first place if she agreed with what you're saying. She gazed at him as they walked, her chest warm with emotion. The path they strode had shifted from footpaths through rice fields to the road climbing the mountain. It was surprisingly wide, given the mountain's small size, though with no shortage of trees on either side. The forest road led them up to the top of the mountain. Wheel marks were etched into the dirt underfoot. No doubt the Ozaki family came through here by car. The only light at the summit was that of the moon and stars overhead. The bald mountain top lacked streetlights and houses as well as vegetation. Near the top, the incline of their path began to even out. The road ended abruptly at a house, still a good way before them. It was too far to make out the shape of the building, but Soujyuro assumed it was Aozaki's house based on the warm light coming from the windows.
ところで、君が家で団らんしている間、自分は何をしていればいいんだろ
So what should I do while you're busy with your family bonding then? Soujyuro had a rough time imagining Aoko engaging in any sort of family bonding time, but with effort he could imagine that it must be a joyful time for her. He didn't want to ruin that by intruding, which is why he brought up the subject now. If he had to, he would not have minded spending the night camping outside. Her reply was not what he had expected.
君はうちの離れに行って祖父に会うの。
You're going to meet my grandfather.
多分そこで今日までの記憶を消されるわ。
He might be able to erase your memories of everything that's happened. She stopped dead in her tracks as she spoke. The frank and open attitude she had shown all night was now gone.
Eh?
Huh? Soujyuro was too shocked to take another step forward. He turned back to look at her, having been walking a little ways ahead, and realized she was not joking. He stood still, taking in the glaring silence. Naturally, Aoko was the first to resume speaking.
驚かないのね、あなた。
Nothing surprises you, does it?
いや、驚いたけど。でも、それは初めから決まっていたことだ。そうか。それで青崎は俺を連れてきたのか。
No, I'm surprised. Of course I am. And now I understand why you wanted me to come along.
退屈しのぎは本当よ。それとは別に、祖父があなたを連れてこいって言ったの。
I wasn't lying about wanting someone to talk to, though. It just so happens that my grandfather also told me to bring you to see him. Soujyuro nodded in acceptance. He was as quiet and unchanging as the night around him. Aoko found it thoroughly irritating.
それじゃあ行こうか。立っていると寒い。
Well, we should get going then. It's cold when you stop moving.
宗十郎、
Soujyuro. Aoko's voice stopped him in his tracks just as he was about to resume walking towards her house.
あなたはそれでいいの。
Are you sure you're okay with this?
記憶を消されるってことは、今までの1ヶ月がなくなるのと同じなのよ。
If he erases your memory, it'll be like the whole month never happened. Soujyuro murmured in understanding. The thought of returning to his old self and forgetting about Aoko, Alice, and the mansion altogether felt like giving up a treasure he had discovered. But he didn't feel like he was unable to let them go either.
確かにそれは嫌だな。青崎と知り合ってからの1ヶ月は楽しかったし、アリスとも約束したばっかりだし。
It would definitely be bad. It's been a fun month since I met you, and I just made that promise to Alice too.
でも、青崎が消えるわけじゃないんだろう。冬休みが終われば、また学校で会えるじゃないか。
But like, it's not like you'll disappear. We'll still see each other at school once the winter break's over, right? And there was no answer from Aoko. She didn't tell him that he was not the only one who would be losing his memory. Intervention by her grandfather would erase her own memories of Soujyuro too. Once it was done, they would most likely never speak with one another again. Each would become just another random student at school. Even if they did happen to meet by some lucky circumstance, things wouldn't be the same as they were now. she couldn't deny that a small part of her was going to miss him.
そうなら行きましょう。
Right. Get going. She rationalized her feelings away instead of processing them and set off once more towards the house. Soujyuro followed along at her side. It was a matter of several minutes before they reached their destination. She was irritated to see that the expression on his face looked exactly the same as it always did. Forgetting their time together was sad for her, if only slightly so, but it didn't seem to bother him in the least.
そりゃね、平気で自分の腕を叩き折れるやつにそんな繊細なこと期待していないけど。
Guess you can't expect much sensitivity from someone who has no problem putting themselves in harm's way by breaking both his... Halfway through muttering her complaint, Aoko suddenly remembered. Or rather, she realized something. Something about that one-time werewolf killer before her. And the mystery of who Soujyuro Suzuki really was. The older version of herself that night had knowledge of Soujyuro beyond what she knew now. She knew something about this seemingly average boy's mistakes. Why he was able to do what he did, and why he was raised in the mountain in the first place. She'd always wondered, but never had the chance to ask him about it, until now. Once her grandfather was through with them, all those questions she had about Soujyuro would be gone too. There was no point in asking right before they had their memories erased. But then again, she might as well if she was ever going. There was no point in asking right before they had their memories erased. But then again, she might as well if she was going to forget everything anyway. And this chair's old and creaky. This was her only chance to demand an explanation for his contradictory behavior.
待って。私も最後に一つ聞きたいことがある。
Wait, there's one thing I wanted to ask before this is all over.
あんた、山でどんな生活を送ってたの？
What was your life like when you lived in the mountains? What were you doing there? Her question stopped him on the spot. She'd never seen him make such a pained expression.
つまらないよ、そんな話は。
Why do you want to talk about something so boring?
面白い話は期待してないって言ったでしょ？
I already told you I don't expect you to say anything interesting.
どうせ私も宗十郎のことは忘れるんだから、それぐらい話してくれてもいいんじゃない？
I'm about to forget everything you say, so just hear me on this one, okay? You're about to forget everything I'm gonna say. Her words and demanding gaze caused him to lift his head in surprise.
忘れるって青崎が？
Ah, yeah, there you go. You mean you'll forget too?
当然よ。あんたが忘れても私が覚えているんじゃ意味がないでしょ？お互いが忘れなくちゃ人と人の関係は立てないわ。
Of course. It'd be pointless if I remembered everything. We won't be able to make a clean break unless we both forget.
行ってこいで公平じゃない。
It makes sense when you think about it. What about Alice? Alice won't forget. Well, at least she's not here to. Anyway.
なんでそんな顔するの？
So quit looking at me like that. Soujyuro's hand shot up to cover his mouth in response. He had no idea what kind of look he had been giving her, but he had a feeling it had been pretty pathetic.
そうか。青崎も忘れるのか。
So, we'll both forget.
そこまでは考えていなかった。
I wasn't expecting that.
ええ。そして私はあなたとは会わなくなる。断定はできないけど、まず間違いなくね。
Yeah, so we won't see each other anymore. You never know, but most likely not. Thus, this would be their last conversation. The way she spoke made it obvious, even if he'd been unaware of what awaited him. Soujyuro might see her walk by at school and feel a desire to talk, but they would have no reason to interact. Even if he tried to strike up a conversation, he knew she was not the type to bother much with other people. More importantly, he was not the type to strike up conversations in the first place. The way he'd been a month ago, at least. That was when he finally realized how cruel it could be to forget something. Not only would he forget that they had been together, he would not so much as know her name or even be aware she existed. Even if he felt strangely drawn to her, he would never understand why. Even if some lucky twist of fate brought them together, things would never be the same. Their walk that night was no less than a funeral for them both. He would essentially kill the person he knew as Aoko Ozaki, and she would kill the person she knew as Soujyuro Suzuki. Afterward, nothing would remain.
だからその前に聞いておきたいの。嫌だって言うなら、あとはこのまま家まで直行するだけだけど。
That's why I wanted to ask. But if you don't want to talk about it, we can just go straight inside instead.
それは寂しいな。
That would be sad.
くだらない話だけど、会話がないよりはマシだろ。
Okay. I guess it's better than not talking at all, but don't blame me if it's boring. Muttering under his breath, Soujyuro set off towards the house once again. This time it was Aoko who matched his pace. There were only minutes left before their path came to its end. The cold air turned their breath into white puffs that hung frozen in the dark night. Looking back on their conversation later, Aoko would think it seemed more of a confession than anything else. For Soujyuro, however, it was like one long, poorly told fairy tale. Which I guess means they're gonna remember this.
別にどうということはない。毎日同じことを繰り返して、毎日同じことを教えられた。
Life in the mountains was nothing special. We were taught and did the exact same things every day.
そこでは明日はないんだ。
There was never such a thing as tomorrow.
始まりが朝で、夜になれば終わる。一日は次の日にはつながらない。だから、明日を夢見ることもない。
Things started in the morning and ended when night came. The days weren't linked in any particular way, so I never had any hopes or dreams about the future.
次の日を楽しみにするなんて言葉は、こっちに来てから知った感覚だったな。
Looking forward to the next day was a totally foreign concept until I moved here.
初めは馴染めなかったし、馴染む気もなかった。
It was hard to get used to at first, and I didn't even particularly want to.
けど、みんながまた明日と満足そうに口にする。いつの間にか、そういうものを夢見るようになっている自分がいた。
But everybody kept saying, "See you tomorrow," with such confidence. Before I knew it, I started dreaming about tomorrow too. Soujyuro kept walking as he spoke. He stared straight ahead as if telling his story to the night itself, not once turning to face Aoko. For her part, Aoko was utterly silent. She knew it was pointless to so much as nod or ask a question.
目が覚めていつもの一日に戻って、ふと気がつくと、昨日までいた誰かがいない。
One day, I woke up and got started like any other day, but then I realized somebody whom I'd seen every day was suddenly gone.
訪ねてみると、夜に体調を崩したらしい。たまにね、眠れなくなって家から出て行って、それっきりな人もいたんだ。
I asked around, and apparently they'd started feeling unwell during the night. Sometimes people who can't sleep go out on a walk by themselves, you know?
見なくなってしばらくした後、崖の下で見覚えのある遺体を見つけたこともあった。
A while later, people discovered a familiar-looking corpse at the bottom of the cliff.
今にして思うとそれは異常なことだ。
Now that I think about it, it was pretty strange.
集まって暮らしていればそんなことにはならなかったのに、自分たちは関わらなかった。一日で完結する世界だったから他人は必要じゃなかったのかもしれない。
Never would have happened if we'd all been living together, but no one was bothered by it. Maybe people didn't value each other since everyone lived on a day-to-day basis.
山では食べるものも少なかった。飢えないためには他の人が寄りつけない場所に行くことが多くなる。その途中の道でいなくなってしまう人も多かった。
There wasn't much to eat in the mountains. To avoid starvation, we often went to places most people wouldn't go. Lots of people died on the way too.
山では誰も他人から奪うことを考えなかった。
No one would ever dream of stealing from others in the mountains.
口にできるものを探すとき、気を配る相手は犬だの熊だのだけで人を気にすることはなかったんだよ。今はその逆になりつつあるけど。
When you're out searching for food, the only things you need to watch out for are dogs and bears, not other people. Here, things are the other way around, though.
ともかく生活の半分はそれだけで済んでいた。
Anyway, half our time was taken up with that. Soujyuro continued to stare straight ahead. He didn't seem troubled by his memories. To Aoko's ears, it sounded like he was describing a place no one in their right mind would want to live, as if they were perfectly normal. It was almost as if he missed it. From that point onward, he slowly began to show more signs of distress as he spoke.
もう半分はまあ身を守る手段を教わっていた。
The other half of our time was spent learning how to defend ourselves.
学校の授業に比べたら些細なことだ。単に自分の体はどう動くものなのか、生き物はどう動くものなのかをよく見て、よく考えろと言われた。
It wasn't really much compared to classes at school now. It just told us to notice how our bodies move and how other animals' bodies move and had us think about it.
単純な反復運動だ。小石を蹴ったり、森の中にこもったり、まあそんな意味合いのことをやっていたんだ。
We repeated some simple drills, kicking stones, surviving in the forest, stuff like that.
あの決まり事が始まると、朝も夜もなかった。
So we got into one of those sessions. Night and day no longer mattered.
外の変化に気持ちを向ける余裕はなくて、ふと気がつくと随分長く食事をしていないなんてのもザラだった。
We didn't exactly have the energy to notice the time of day. Sometimes you go a long time and realize you haven't eaten anything for ages.
ちゃんとご飯はもらえたよ。そういうのの後は。
I mean, we did get food eventually, so don't feel bad about us or anything.
あれが何のためだったのかは今でもわからない。
I still have no idea why we did that stuff, though.
ただ山で暮らしていくには役に立ったし、そもそもあれだって生活の一部だった。
It definitely made living in the mountains easier, so I just accepted it as what we had to do.
生きるってことはそうすることだって思ってた。こうやって息をして歩くためにはあの繰り返しは当然のものだったんだ。
I thought that's how life was for everyone. It felt natural and even necessary to do all that training.
宗十郎、それは。
Soujyuro? His tone was totally indifferent, but the strangeness of it all forced Aoko to interject. He glanced at Aoko and nodded as if to show he knew what she was thinking.
何かがおかしかったんだろう。あれは身を守る知恵じゃなくて、もっと違う用途のものだった。
I know, it sounds strange. The training definitely seemed like it was for something more than just
た
self-defense.
まにいなくなる知り合いは山の土になったんじゃなくて、他の場所で他の理由で消えた場合もあったんだろう。
I have a feeling that people who sometimes disappeared actually left the mountain for some other reason.
でも考えることさえなかった。
I never really thought about any of that then.
精神の隙間を知れだの、命の勝ち負けを知れだの、意味を汲み取らないまま鵜呑みにして、当然のように繰り返した。
I accepted it all without really knowing what was going on or having any qualms about it, without knowing whether people were even still alive.
それがどう評価されるものなのか、俺にはわからない。
Maybe some people would judge me for what I did. I don't know.
ただ、知らなければ。
But I do know one thing.
外のことなんて知らなければ、悩むことなく、自分はそこに居続けられたと思う。
If I hadn't learned about the outside world, I probably would have stayed there without a care in the world forever.
あなたの嫌いな生き死にの真似を続けて。
You'd have kept living on the verge of death like that? Even though you didn't like it? He didn't respond to her question. From then on, they continued walking in silence. Aoko could not stop thinking about all the contradictions and absurdities of what he had said. The imbalance in his education, for one. His knowledge of the basics of human life was thorough, yet he knew next to nothing about modern technology. He always said he wasn't good at socializing, but he seemed accustomed to talking and discussion. His upbringing could not have happened that way by chance. It was most certainly an environment purposefully constructed by some third party. Aoko had no idea what that purpose could be or who the third party was, though. Why would anyone want to create someone with a background like Soujyuro's? Was it all part of a grander plan? Or was there really a place deep in the mountains where it was normal to live like that? He had asked about this once in his home in the mountains, apparently. When he expressed his confusion, the elder had taken him aside, saying, "This is just this is just how things have always been around here, boy. There's no reason to keep doing it. There's no reason to stop." With a laugh, the elder chose a new identity and life outside the mountains for young Soujyuro, and sent him off to live on his own. Aoko's home loomed at the end of their path. It was a generic home without any real distinguishing features. It seemed as if a house from a town had been picked up and dropped here. One could imagine the residents were peaceful people who engaged in farming and raising animals in their spare time. Gazing at what lay before him, Soujyuro finally opened his mouth to answer Aoko's earlier question.
自分にはできなかった。知らなければよかったのに知ってしまったから。
I would have. If I'd never learned about the outside world, I would have stayed there forever. But now I know, and I could never go back.
その後は簡単だ。
Coming here made everything simple.
泣けない鳥はいらないと言われた。
Someone once told me that no one wants a bird that can't sing.
今まで疑いもなくできたことを、意味を知っただけでできなくなったものはいらないと。
It's the same when you learn the truth about something you never questioned before. Once you know the truth, you just don't want it in your life anymore.
どんなに山にいたくても、できないのなら意味がない。
No matter how badly I want to go back to the mountains, I can't live like that anymore. There's no point even trying.
俺は意味を知った瞬間に、意味を信じることができなくなった。だから山を降りたんだ。
Once I learned that things meant something, I couldn't just blindly believe things anymore. That's why I left the mountains.
けれど、どうなんだろう。
But who knows?
そこではそうすることだけが全てだった。
That was all I'd ever known.
そうすることだけしか教えられなかった。
It was all I'd ever been taught to do.
だから、
That's why there'd only been one problem with his life in the mountains. Himself, for having questioned it. It was all his mistake. He muttered as much to himself, his voice dripping with criticism. In Aoko's opinion, the world he described was, in a sense, perfect. Best environment to achieve a goal was one in which all elements extraneous to that goal had been removed. As long as the people involved had no concept of morality, they would consider the immoral to be correct. No, even correctness would be a foreign concept. Only one thing was for sure. The world Soujyuro had come from was frozen in time. That was what made his tragedy possible. A world of wrongdoing and mistakes had created a human riddled with mistakes as well. Soujyuro understood that it was wrong, and yet he still thought it beautiful even now. Regardless of what the truth behind it might have been, he considered that world perfect. He only blamed himself for having learned what existed outside that world. Just earlier, he'd said that he would have been happier.
知らなければよかったのに。
If I'd never learned about the outside world, I would have stayed there forever. He surely felt the weight of those sinful words he spoke more deeply than anyone else. That's why he still wondered. What had gone awry? Whose fault was it really? He didn't want to answer these questions alone. He wanted her to state it clearly for him. There was a moment of silence that felt like an eternity before she spoke.
私には答えられないわ。
I can't answer those questions for you. Her reply came quietly. She had an answer, but she couldn't tell him. It was a struggle for her to tell such a bold-faced lie. The boy reflected deeply on what she said. He knew right away that her words were coming from a place of kindness.
そうだな。君の最初の優しさが今でよかった。
I understand. Now I can appreciate your kindness during those early days. Pleasant look floated across his face, at which Aoko could only scowl.
何よそれ。
What do you mean?
まるで普段から優しくないみたいじゃない。
I haven't been any nicer to you than I normally am.
青崎は優しくないじゃないか。
Well, you're not very nice normally, are you? She found herself unable to offer any protest against such a blunt statement. It was because she knew he was right.
そうね。優しくなんかないわね。私。
I guess you're right. I'm not very nice. Soujyuro smiled in response to her vaguely sad consent, as if to say, told you so. His indulgent smirk arose from his sense of personal pride in the situation. It was both warm-hearted and uncomfortable, causing Aoko to instantly regret her question. If only she asked about something else, something random that did not matter, then she never would have ended up in a mood like this. Only a few minutes remained until their path came to an end. Surrounded by a wooden fence, the house resembled an inn for passing travelers in winter. The light spilling out from the window brought to mind images of a lively dinner table, quite the opposite of the current mood between the two.
ごめん。悪いこと聞いちゃって。
Sorry, I shouldn't have pried. Aoko stopped at the entrance to the yard. Did she feel compelled to apologize despite? No. Because it was their last conversation? Soujyuro's only response was to shrug it off.
話途中なのにね。
There's still a lot to talk about. He looked up at the house they had hiked so far to reach, his breath hanging white in the air. All signs of gloom were gone from Sojuro's face as he nodded.
自分も話してみてようやく振り向けたと思う。だから青崎には感謝してるよ。
I think talking about it helped me reflect in the past, so I appreciate it.
それに、これはもう終わったことだ。
Besides, it's all in the past now.
続きを話すのはまた機会があった時にしよう。
Maybe I can continue the story next time we have a chance to talk. He turned his head to face Aoko with an ephemeral smile. It was his usual, nonchalant self, same as every other day. Aoko prayed that day would never come. For her own peace of mind, but also for the well-being of this very unique boy.
もっとも、そんな機会はもう来ないか。
There probably won't be a next time. Then she pointed in the direction of a cave hidden by a small forest on the other side of the house.
あそこ、ちょっとした洞穴があるの。 そこに祖父がいるから行って。
My grandfather's in the cave over there, so you should go see him.
本当はもっと違った話が聞きたかったけど仕方ないか。魔法は12時になると切れちゃうものだしね。
I actually wanted to ask about something else, but whatever. Spell will wear off at midnight anyway, right? Sarcastic grins spread across her face as she spoke. And so Soujyuro walked off, totally clueless as to what fairy tale she was referencing. The forest felt so far from the house to Aoko that it was like a different place on Earth altogether. In reality, it wasn't far at all, really only 5 minutes away.
さよなら、しずきくん。
Goodbye, Suzuki. She said it to herself as she watched him simply walk away without turning back. Though he wasn't meant to hear her words of parting, they apparently reached his ears anyway.
ああ、じゃあまた明日、町のどこかで。
Right. See you around tomorrow. He raised his hand in farewell and then disappeared into the forest. As soon as she was sure he was gone, she turned her gaze to the sky. That night, the stars were even more beautiful than the moon. He had been looking at her fondly only moments before, and now he was gone into the forest, with only a brief word of parting. It did not feel real. And with that, she finally understood, if a little too late to matter. She understood who had truly been the strange and unusual one. Anyone could have ended up behaving like Soujyuro, but not many could keep talking on and on the way he did. Everything he had done was now perfectly sensible in light of his former life in the mountains. As a magician, she was supposed to make miracles happen. But he had arrived at a miracle of his own through the trials and tribulations of following what he had considered to be common sense.
素手で熊を倒すなんて私にはどう転んでもできないし。
I could never take down a bear with my bare hands, after all. It's pretty impressive. Soujyuro's own magic was so mundane to him that it made him depressed to talk about it. But even so, it was the kind of brilliance only possessed by humans. She pulled her eyes back down from the starry sky and began to walk. The lights were on inside the entrance and the door was unlocked. Aoko rolled up her sleeves and checked the time. Only 1 hour left until midnight. She just barely managed to satisfy her parents' request to visit before the end of the year. Placing her hand on the door, she took a deep breath. She promptly stifled the faint affection and said as she had been feeling. It was her first time back in 2 years. Upon entering high school 2 years ago, she had begun living on her own. How time flew by. For some reason, the memories began to race through her mind. There she stood, one hand on the door, reflecting on the past. Once the door was open, she'd be staring at her future instead. Her hand holding the doorknob began to move. She was met with the warm scene she expected, though strangely different than that of her memories. It was comforting to encounter something familiar after being away for so long. And so it was, with small, unspoken gratitude, that Aoko returned to her home. Without stopping to ring the doorbell, she called out with a smile. "I'm home!" Meanwhile, in fucking dark place, the moment Soujyuro stepped inside, he was struck with a strange feeling of familiarity. It wasn't mere nostalgia either. No, it reached further back into the past. It was a feeling from far beyond what he could even imagine. He was reminded of someone, but he couldn't remember whom. Perhaps he was only reminded of himself, or perhaps of the old man before him now, in the cavern. It appeared to be an old man anyway. Soujyuro couldn't make out any details beyond a vague outline. As far as he could tell, the figure didn't seem to have anything in the way of a face capable of making expressions. All he knew was that the smoke-like figure before him was the one Aoko called grandfather. I want to thank you for everything you did for my girls. Though hoarse, the old man's voice was powerful and rang throughout the cavern. It was fate that we would. Yeah, there we go. It was fate that we would meet. Tell me, what is it you wish for?
望みはないです。でも、聞きたいことは一つあります。
I don't know that I wish for anything. There is something I'd like to ask you.
どうして二人を争わせたんですか?
Why are you making those two fight each other?
それは私の外で起きた物語だ。答えることはできない。
I cannot provide an answer to that. There's a story outside my control.
そう仕向けたのはあなただと聞きました。
Well, I heard you were the one responsible for it.
星の巡りだ。あれらは相入れない才能を与えられ、あのような形でしか噛み合えない人間だ。私の意図に関係なく、共にいればどちらかがきしみを上げた。
The stars are to blame. The two were given incompatible talents. This is simply how they respond to one another. Whenever they're together, they find a way to fight. Not through any decide of mine.
だが、確かに衝突を避ける余地はあった。あれらの意志が凡庸であったか、あるいは破格のものであったのなら、多くの不順に耐えただろう。
I used to keep enough distance to avoid conflict, though. Perhaps the things they fought over were more innocuous, or perhaps they were very serious, in which case they must have suffered immensely.
君のように自己の崩壊が見えていても共存を尊ぶように。しかし娘たちはそれを選ばなかった。
You value a spirit of coexistence, even when you can see that it would harm you. But the girls chose not to follow that path.
彼女たちが争うのは彼女たちのせいだって言うんですね。その原因はあなたにあるのに。
So you're putting the blame on them, even though the reasons for their fighting all lead back to you?
そうだ。あれらの争いはあれらの性を表すもの。原因というのなら私などゼロに等しい。
Indeed. The girls' fighting is a reflection of their lives. I take zero responsibility for the reasons for which they do it.
ゼロ？形がないということですか?
You mean there's zero physical proof of your involvement?
形ではなく、意味がない。
No. The claim is simply meaningless.
私という起因から起こり、娘たちが一つの命を得た時点で、私は舞台から消え失せた。その後の因は常に娘たちから生じたものだ。私の介入はない。
When the girls were born, the only real line of causality you can draw between us, I had already left this era. They have given rise to all events since. I played no intervening role.
今回、どちらが時間を終わらせても、あるいは両者が終わらせても、私には無価値だった。
If either of them reaches the end of their time in this realm, or even if they both do, it matters not to me.
いや、元より無価値だ。
In fact, I never considered that to be of importance.
私に価値を与える命は まだ生まれていない。
Life, title deserving the value I can offer, has not yet come to be.
我らがどうなろうとやるべきことは変わらない。
Whatever may happen between the two of them, it doesn't change what I have to do.
青子が生きていても死んでいても跡継ぎを作るということですか？
You mean all you care about is getting your heir, no matter whether Aoko lives or dies?
おそらくこの体が消えないのはそういうことだ。
Yeah, I guess. That's why my body has yet to disappear. The steamy energy that filled the cavern made Sojuro's head reel. The moment Aoko and Toko were born, their grandfather seemed to have completely forgotten they were his granddaughters. It was hard to imagine a satisfactory Aozaki heir ever being born. No amount of power would satisfy the old man. He showed no signs of compromise or restraint.
青子はそのために過去を捨てたのに。
I assume you know Aoko threw everything away for this? There was nothing but silence. However, this short moment of quiet would only occur once. The unreadable outline of the man grew blurrier still. Long ago, a child wandered into the cave, her karma empty. The old man automatically granted her request, born from innocence and ignorance. He was a magician who had given up his ego in order to extend his own lifespan, and he did whatever he could to help the child. It had been an incredible coincidence to happen that day. I guess it would have been that day. Faced with the sin she had invited, the child had glared at the old man with tear-filled eyes. Everything will be lost. It'll happen completely and without warning, thanks to the failure of a nobody. Thanks to you, he had declared. The child threw a tantrum at how unfair it all was. The magician claimed that was merely the way of the world. The child stood up to him. Shut up, old man. And then... Yes. And then... The child ran around in tears, trying to make the old man pay for the cost of a life. At the cost of all lives.
それは間違いだ、少年。
You are mistaken, boy. Perhaps that's how it happened.
捨てたのではない。
She didn't throw anything away.
それを美しくするためにあれは生きているのだ。
She lives to make her past more beautiful. That role had likely come to an ending long ago, however. The old man's appearance seemed to change before Sojuro's eyes. For just a brief moment, he wavered in the air as if in a haze.
君の過ちを正そう。娘たちは私というものをよく分かっている。ともすれば、私本人より理解しているとも言える。
Let me correct your error. The girls understand me quite well. In fact, I think they understand me better than I do myself.
私が娘たちの人格を考慮せぬように、娘たちもまた私というものの人格を認めていない。
I am not concerned with who they are, and likewise they don't appreciate who I am.
祖父さえいなかったのならという考えさえないだろう。
I doubt thoughts of my absence have ever crossed their minds.
彼らはそもそも争い合う自分たちを一度も卑下はしないはずだ。
They've always been so proud in all their fighting, unwilling to debase themselves.
君にその関係を分かれというのは酷だろ
It's cruel to expect you to deal with all that, though.
尋ね事は終わったようだ。
You seem to be through asking questions now.
次は私の番だ。
It is my turn.
君の名前を知りたい。
What is your name? Soujyuro answered the old man's question. His smoky face seemed to frown, quivering ever so slightly.
意外だ。君は孤立しているというのに、複数を示す名がついているとは思わなかった。
How unexpected. You say you're all alone, yet the meaning of your name implies the existence of multiple, bearing the character for 10. So, I don't know Japanese characters. Shit.
似合わん。全く似合わん。
It doesn't suit you. No, not at all.
だがそちらでは正しいことだ。不釣り合いな場所にいるのなら、不釣り合いな名が必要だろう。
But I believe it is correct. When in a place of imbalance, one needs an imbalanced name to match.
希少ではあるが、やはり無価値だ。
Rare, yes, but also worthless.
すべてを肯定する諦めは死に由来するものだろう。続くものがない以上、一代限りの才能は無価値だ。
Resigning oneself to affirmations stems from a will to die. A one-time talent in a single generation means nothing if there's no one to continue the family line.
我の行く末に影響を与えた君に興味を持ったが、失望した。
I was interested in the way you were able to influence Aoko, but ultimately you did not meet my expectations.
無駄な時間を過ごしたようだ。
It seems the time spent was for nothing.
今は結ばれているが、いずれ離れていくのは変えようのない結末だ。
You are bound together for the time being, but it is inevitable that you will go your separate
では
ways.
立ち去りたまえ。
Now be gone.
私は死者に用はない。二度と会うことはないだろう。
I have no use for the dead. We will not meet again. Everything grew blurry. Soujyuro's memories began to fade. It had been a conversation without any answers. An encounter without any significance. I vanished completely, like a dream. The air was cold, the sky beautiful. The evening sky at the end of each day looked different from the last. Each sunset could be seen for one day and one day only. Though the sky may not look dramatically different to the human eye from one day to the next, every day we wake up a new person and forget the beautiful sights, the moments of heartbreak, and all the other fleeting things that seemed so real the day before. Simple statements such as these felt all the more profound in the still air of the mountains, more bone-piercing than the cold winter itself. Soujyuro stared up at the sky as if he had forgotten when and where he was. Aoko's look of stunned surprise brought him back to the present.
なんだ、早かったな、青崎。
Oh, Ozaki. That was fast. Soujyuro turned to face Aoko, who had only just stepped outside her family's yard. At first, she'd been too shocked to move or speak, but she quickly regained her composure and marched forward. She continued until she was standing right before him, with an intense scowl on her face. Soujyuro slouched instinctively, bracing for impact. He had not the slightest idea what could have made her so angry.
なんでまだここにいるのよ。
What are you still doing here? After I finally managed to convince myself that things were over. She was obviously irritated with him. In any case, the anger would have to subside before she could decide whether she was happy or sad to see him. Humans get angry when things do not go the way they had hoped.
さっきから10分と20秒も経ってない。
It's hardly been more than 10 minutes.
なんでこんなところで突っ立ってるのよ、あんた。
How can you be standing here? It was supposed to have taken an entire day for her grandfather to erase his memories from the past month. She'd been planning to let her grandfather handle all the details, and yet here Soujyuro was, staring dumbly at the sky. He's no astrologer. He just likes looking at the night sky. Bombarded with Aoko's unspoken emotion, he proceeded to explain himself.
あの老人からの伝言だけど、
He gave me a message for you.
記憶の消去は君の役目で人に頼るな。だそうだ。今日呼ばれたのは単に悪口を聞かせたかっただけらしいよ。
He said you shouldn't go around asking other people to erase my memories. You should do it yourself. Apparently, he wanted me to come just to have someone to complain to. Hearing this, Aoko finally began to feel like herself again. Despite having been ready to dish out the punishment only a few moments earlier, she now felt quite calm.
そっか。人に任せるなんて確かに私らしくなかった。
Huh. Well, he's right that it's not like me to expect someone else to clean up my messes. The intense look in her eyes slowly faded to her usual mildly irritated expression. It relieved Soujyuro to see her like this. She was finally back to her normal self.
納得いったなら行こ
Well, if that's enough for you, then let's get going.
う。急がないと最終電車に間に合わない。
We'll miss the last train if we don't hurry. With that, he walked off without waiting for an answer. Aoko stared at his retreating figure, and for a brief moment... Aoko stared at his retreating figure for a brief moment before quietly cursing him under her breath and following after him. The descent back to the station was much easier than the way there. The sheet of darkness spread out below them. There, in the middle of that ocean of black, was a single light, the tiny glowing station. They walked for some time in silence. Aoko recalled their earlier conversation and felt she'd been too naive. She should have avoided all the serious stuff. This is how things were going to end up. Soujyuro, meanwhile, was thinking nothing at all, just like usual. For him, the silence felt quite natural, while for her it was awkwardly uncomfortable. Suddenly, Soujyuro blurted out the strangest thing without thinking.
アリスにはお餅を買っていってあげよう。
We should pick up some mochi for Alice on the way back. Aoko's eyes grew wide, her pupils reduced to mere points. Aoko had so many questions going around her head she wanted to rail at the paradox that was Soujyuro.
お餅が何？
Mochi? Why?
お土産。アリス一人で待っているんだから喜ぶと思う。
As a gift. We left her all alone in that mansion. We should do something nice for her. It'll make her happy. Aoko raised her hand to her head in concern. Unprotected by the warmth of a pair of gloves, her slender fingers were white from the cold.
あの子にはそういうの逆効果だけど、宗十郎がやる分には大丈夫か。
I don't think she'll be happy, but maybe coming from Soujyuro it'll be okay. His seemingly selfless attitude came in handy sometimes. Alice would most likely accept his gift without making a scene.
そうね。確かにアリスはこういうの根に持って口に出さずに恨んでるたちだけど。
Gotcha. She's the type to resent something like that and hold a silent grudge over it, though.
また、なんだってお土産がお持ちなの？
Why does it have to be mochi anyway? Hold on, I'm gonna try something. Oops, shit. Yeah, actually, that worked out. Oh, shit. Messed that up. Here we go. Saving that for later.
だって食べたことなさそうだろ彼女。
I get this feeling she's never eaten one before. All I could do in response was to such simple-minded observation was not an agreement. The image of Alice eating mochi popped into her head, and suddenly the prospect of getting back in the mansion felt a little more exciting.
あんたって本当に無心よね。
You really are a regular space cadet, you know that?
そういえば前から不思議に思ってたんだけど、いつからアリスと仲良くなったの？そのきっかけが私にはわからないんだけど。
Speaking of which, since when have you and Alice been on such good terms? Something happen? Aoko peered at him the way she would at a strange specimen as he took a deep breath and launched into an earnest explanation.
大きなきっかけとかそういうのはないと思うけど。
I don't know that there's a particular time I can point to when it happened.
強いて言うなら初めて話した時かな。もっと確かになったのはロビーで話した時だろうね。
But if I had to say, it started the first time we spoke. And we got a lot closer after talking that time of the foyer, too.
たったそれだけ？
That's it?
ああ、親しくなるっていうのはそういうことだろ？
Yeah. Getting to know someone's all about the little moments like that, don't you think? Soujyuro seemed to find her question odd. The way he and Alice communicated went beyond words. Aoko could only assume that's how he did it.
そういえば、初めからアリスって呼び捨てだったものね、あんたは。
Come to think of it, you've always just called her Alice, and not by her last name.
そうだっけ？よく覚えていないけど。それより何を怒ってるんだ、青崎。
Have I? Ooh, I don't remember now. More importantly, though, why are you so mad?
別に怒ってないわよ、私。
I'm not mad. Her response was slightly cold, but also somehow gentle. They approached the halfway point of the mountain path. The night sky appeared more distant as they neared the bottom, and Soujyuro continued to stare absentmindedly at the stars. Then it finally hit her why his behavior had been bothering her since the ascent. She realized he must be feeling nostalgia. He missed the way the stars looked up in the mountains.
青崎、
Azaki? He spoke without looking down from the heavens.
一つ聞きたいんだけど。君に後悔はあるのかな？
I've been meaning to ask. Do you have anything you regret? Sojuro's breath was white in the air, his hands jammed in his pockets. Aoko had the vague feeling somewhere deep inside that he was only a figment of her imagination.
どうしたの？突然そんなこと聞いて。
Where'd that question come from?
いいから答えて。聞きたいんだ。
Just answer it. I want to know.
君に悔いはあるのかないのかを。
Do you have any regrets or not? It was a sad thing to be asked. He would be hurt one way or another no matter how she answered. But he wanted an answer, and so she gave him one.
ないわよ、そんなの。 だってそれをしないために今を頑張ってるんだもの。
Regrets? Of course not. I make it a point to live my life with no regrets.
後悔なんてのはね、宗十郎、するものじゃなくてなくしていくためにあるものなのよ。
Regrets aren't something you have, Soujyuro. They're something you get rid of. Soujyuro grunted in response. He bit his lip and pushed down the flood of emotions that rose up inside him. He waved his hand slightly without actually raising it, as if to shoo away something formless and odorless.
そうか。後悔もなくなるものなのか。
So regrets are just something to get rid of, huh? Pain was subtly visible on his face as he spoke. And yet it was so vivid. As much as he wanted to, he didn't have the strength to say it aloud. He wasn't like her, able to speak her mind so readily. Maybe someday. The sky and the darkness were both far away now. Tonight's grand view, only to be seen this once. He hoped its beauty would remain in his mind forever. But what then of the regrets he had come to hold inside? Of the days he had spent that now shone like stars in the sky? Would they too be with him forever?
いい空ね。街じゃちょっと見れないな。
Nice sky tonight. It's a much better view than the one from town. Aoko mimicked Soujyuro, looking up at the darkness overhead. The stars shone brighter here than in town. This clarity was thanks to the absence of any other lights amidst the darkness. Soujyuro stared at her with an almost with a sense of loathing. As beautiful as the stars were, they weren't the real thing. Not here.
そうだね。でも、ここでも手は届きそうにない。
Yeah. But they're still too far to ever reach.
Eh?
Huh? Soujyuro's sudden negativity caused her to turn in shock. The anger in his eyes had died down now. Taking a breath, he began to speak as if talking to himself. His gaze never left the stars.
山ではね、青崎。星は本当に手が届きそうなんだ。届かないのは分かっていても、望めば掴めそうなぐらい近いのに。
Not like this in the mountains. The stars there feel so close. Even if they're technically too far away to touch, it really feels like you could just reach out and grab them.
都会の星はそう思うことさえ許してくれない。
Stars in the city don't give you that feeling. He was speaking of the sky in its purest state. The starry skies in the mountains far exceed those of any urban planetarium. Their movement was like that of the pouring rain. He spoke of the primal sky, unchanged from the past. The same sky humans traced with their fingers since prehistoric times. For him, it was a past to which he would never return, a place to which he didn't even know the way back.
今まで目に映るすべてを山と比べていた。こんな場所は本当は嫌いだったんだ。今でも正直馴染めない。
I used to compare everything here to the mountains. I really hated it then, and I'm still not used to it now.
でも、いつか比べるのは街になってしまうんだろう。自分はこっちに降りてきてしまったんだから。
At some point, I'll start looking at the mountains from a city dweller's perspective, I'm sure. The mountains are in my past now. That was his one regret. He lowered his gaze from the stars and turned to Aoko. Her eyes were unusually hesitant, and she looked slightly hurt. Was it empathy they showed? Or pity? Either way, he was the reason for the uncharacteristic look on her face now. He shut his eyes and nodded in response to her unspoken question.
それは仕方のないことだ。
It's true. I can't help it.
ただ、そうなるのなら、そうなってしまう以上に、素晴らしいものを手に入れないといけない。
But it's the way it's gonna be. I gotta make the most of it.
後悔を、いつか、後悔と思わないために。
So that someday, I could stop seeing it as a regret. There was gratitude in Sojuro's voice as he confessed his feelings. Remnants from the past must one day be released. Lost must be overcome. He had lost it, his everything, the moment she answered his query.
やめてよね。私の一言でいちいち人生観変えられちゃ荷が重いじゃない。
Oh, cut it out. Don't act like it caused some kind of turning point in your life. She smiled weakly and averted her eyes as she spoke these hurtful words. Most likely she was being completely honest, and in that she was being true to herself.
それで、祖父と何を話したの？
So what did you and my grandfather talk about?
あの人が他人に興味を持つなんてすごいことよ。
It's rare for him to care about anyone else beside himself. The topic had been finally broached, and yet Soujyuro said nothing. An empty reply can be used to buy time. It nearly reached the flat road at the base of the mountain. Soft earth here would soon give way to the tightly packed dirt of the paths running between the rice fields. Before they got that far, Soujyuro came to an abrupt halt. Closing his eyes, he listened carefully. He then gave a firm nod and turned to face Aoko.
おめでとう、青崎。
Congratulations, Ozaki. She blinked, not knowing what to make of it.
何よ、突然。
What's with you all of a sudden? It was a perfectly natural response. The tension melted from his face as he said, Happy New Year. He now wore a smile full of joy. Dumbfounded, all Aoko could do was stare back at his calm visage. His surprise attack hit her so hard she thought she could hear the shrine bell in Yashirogi ringing in the new year. She had known it was the last day of the year, but not given it much thought beyond that. And so his succinct words gave her quite the shock, as if the girl who believed in the power of the bell all those years ago had come back.
そっか。午前0時でもう新しい年なんだ。
Girl, it looks like it's fucking dawn. Oh, right. It's midnight now, so the new year is here. She spoke in a hushed tone as if this was shocking news. At the same time, a slight smile crept onto her face. A new year indeed. She recalled the first time she had worn a full-length kimono, how she had not been particularly uncomfortable or embarrassed, but not especially pretty either. The only pretty thing about her had been the moment she smiled at herself in the mirror. Seeing the warmth in her eyes, Soujyuro closed his own in satisfaction. It made him happy to see her like that.
いろいろあったけど、
Well, a lot happened in the past year,
新しい年を君と迎えられてよかった。
but I'm glad to be able to start a new one with you. Then he went off walking once more. The thought of Alice waiting alone was probably what spurred him into action. Aoko recalled his words as she walked alongside him. The moment he had declared the start of the new year, the way he had spoken so naturally, made her suddenly feel like they had known each other for years. She could not be blamed for being filled with happiness at the thought. And yet a day would surely come when they would have to say their goodbyes. Until then, however, it would not do any harm to behave as if they were just old friends. He was a naive, yet incredibly unique young man. As they walked, she wondered how long this feeling of friendship would last. She looked up wistfully at the sky, just the way Soujyuro had done earlier on their walk. Every star was out, without a cloud in the sky. The two strode down the mountain path, beneath the stars that lay ever beyond their reach. Oh shit. Shit, mouse. No. Gotta turn that off just in case. Holy shit. Is that it? Was this the last of it? Oh god. Kinaganasu. Oh my god. Ah. So there's actually a little bit past this. There's like I guess some scenes that ended up getting skipped. I don't know how. But while credits are in fact rolling, um we're not quite done here yet. Holy shit though, this is so good. I don't know how to express that without just like, oh yeah, so good. Oh. I really do need to work on being more eloquent. How about I was certain that grandfather wasn't going to erase Sojiro's memory. Um I want to say either towards the beginning of that conversation, but I was definitely more certain of it when he was like, "Okay, get out of here. I don't want to talk to you anymore. Leave." I was like, "Oh, okay. He had no intention of doing that at all. Okay, cool." But to that note about Sojiro, it sounds like this is something that has been speculated in the community for a while now. But I'm pretty sure now that I've read it for myself, I'm pretty sure that the community that Sojiro came from the mountains was the same one that trained what's his name? Sa- Was it also Suzuki? Caster's master from Fate's Day Night, whose name currently escapes me. Unless I wrote it down over there. No? Okay. Damn it. Oh, hey, it's Alice. Is she waiting for them? Boy, you're in for a surprise. I turned the music on right now, but yeah, super solid. Oh, that's cool. Anytime there's like an ED with like lyrics, there's like a really good chance that someone's gonna try and claim it. So, it's just you and me here, guys. uh, God, okay. Just trying to take in everything. Hmm. Suzuki? Was it Suzuki? Oh, hey. Oh, shit, where's the mouse? Nope, still music. Not quite yet. Why did I mute it like that? It's gonna make it a pain in the ass. Find the sound again. Shit. Okay, what if I did it like so? Not that. Thank you. Yeah, there. So Oh, they put the lights on. Type. Wish I could do. What's it called? The other one. Tsukihime. I wish I could have done Tsukihime. Oop, what the fuck's happening? It was on a lazy Sunday morning that I discovered the book. Was I an intruder? No. Adventurer. Either way, I'd make my way into the forbidden Kwanji Estate Library. The book instantly drew my attention as it looked like it had been intentionally hidden there on the bookshelf. It was large enough to double as a shield, and so it took great effort for me to remove it from the shelf. Flipping through, I realized it was a grimoire of rune magecraft, and a first edition at that. Surprised as I was by my find, my search came to the halt at the page I had been looking for. It was the rune of memory erasure that the Nordic gods had once used on a Valkyrie. For minutes I simply stared at the page where the rune methodology was laid out. And then, finally, I shut the book. I returned it to the shelf at an even harder to detect location than where I'd originally found it. That's when it hit me. I'd seen this book before somewhere. When and where exactly had I seen it, though? Yeah, it was when he first invited me to spend time with him. The girl sitting before me had it in hand at the time. That must have been it. Unable to keep the smile off my face, I decided to put the book back exactly where I'd found it. It'd be most difficult to find it when mixed in with the other books on the shelf. However, out of respect for her gracious efforts, I decided to pretend I'd never seen it at all. I shelved my discovery, so to speak. That's when I heard the shouting of a familiar voice in the main building. Lately, he seemed to have found his calling as a housekeeper and taken to cleaning every corner of the mansion. That was all well and good, but there were a few things that were off limits, which neither Alice nor I dared to touch. He was the type to open things without asking, which put us all in hot water. There had been an uproar when he released the ghost ship that Alice's mother had kept around. Catching that little speed demon known as the Cutty Sark had been quite the ordeal. I still felt bad for having to rely on that creepy golden wolf for help. And before that, he'd lifted the seal on the troop of spirits in the basement, which had left to even creepier people from the church coming to the mansion for an entire week. Going back even further, there was also the time he'd ventured unsolicited in Alice's room. And the ensuing chaos, I fell into the mirror and we almost ended up in an all-out war with Alice. Come to think of it, he really and truly lacked any capacity for learning.
もういい加減にしてよね、あのバカ。
That idiot needs to get a handle on himself. The good mood I'd been up until that moment was spoiled, and I went dashing out of the library. I imagined coming upon the architect of my troubles standing there in the hallway and giving him a swift drop kick in the face he deserved. As far as I was concerned, that would be just another fun day in the mansion. And so our little secret remained hidden on the bookshelf, likely never to be opened again. So assuming that's the end of that. Let's see. Ah, too far. Cool. It was when she was talking about seeing the book before. It was when he first invited me to spend time with him. The girl sitting before me had it in the hand at the time. Shit, now I forgot. When was that? Well, at the very least, I think the implication is that uh, Aoko knows. They said before that Aoko apparently knows how to erase the memories, but more than that, seems Alice also has her own way to erase memories. Hey, all scenarios read for chapter 13, and we're done. Wow. All right. I'm a little sad that there's not like a special thing. They did it for Fate Stay Night too, but there's not a special thing for here. Aww. What happens if I hit continue? Does it just start all over? Oh, okay. No, it's this. Yeah, okay. Okay. Which reminds me, if I go here, I can show you a little sneak peek at the extra stuff that I was talking about. There's all of this stuff. I don't know what 7 Days of Spinning is. Although I see some familiar figures. If I'm being quite honest. The Bird Afar, Naive Plans, Martha. Why'd you say that name? Carnegie Case? Whiteboard. She seems familiar, but like someone we only saw once. The Honey Adventure. With her? And is that Bayo? Can't tell. What happened today? An incident one day. Yeah, there you go. The road home. Yeah. Weird. It looks like that could be like a space for another book here. But so does right here. The Asaki Family Affairs. Court of the Asakis. I'm actually like really into seeing First Star Mistake Cat. These titles here. Girly Girl in the Manor. Okay. This one. A Day in the Life. Swinging 7 Days. I guess that's 7 Days of Spinning. This is weird because they're like almost localized the exact same way, but like it got two different. This is obviously like the Japanese titles, like direct, and then they're like, okay, let's smooth things out. Urban Style, So What, and Lunch of Our Choice. Yeah, City Style, Urban Style. Lunch Together, Lunch of Our Choice. I wonder what that is. Just gonna pull that out really quick. Knights. Oh, this is them fighting that other puppet. All right. Yes, we're done here. All right. But if we are saying that if the question is, have we finished Witch of the Holy Night? The answer is, yeah, kinda. That was the finale, but we do have a little bit more to go over. So, yeah, I guess we're done. Wow. I never thought I'd be so. There was a part of me that kind of figured maybe I have at least another week or two with it, but it seems stuff like that tends to catch up. Anyway, hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, rest of your week. Hope you're all taking care of yourselves and each other, and that'd be that. Have a good one, guys. Bye.